You don't want to hear me ramble on for longer. You're all here to check out the interview we have tonight. And this guy, if you haven't seen this person before, you've probably heard him at some point. So we have the great Ron Krog with us here tonight, announcer at I-94 and KRA Speedway. How are you doing, Ron?
Hey, doing real good. Good talking to you, Mason. I was excited all day thinking, you know what? I get to talk to Mason tonight, and you know what that means? We're going to be talking some racing.
Absolutely. Figured we get a good voice on here to get us all excited for the race season. Of course, I believe you live in Fergus Falls, so you probably had a little bit more snow than I did, or than we did in Fargo last week.
Boy, that's for sure, Mason. We got 10 inches here last week, and but it's mostly all gone right now. I actually live east of Fergus, about 25 miles up here by Otter Tail Lake, and like I said, but north of Fergus, they got like 15 inches. So we were out at the racetrack last night checking things out, and it's a little wet yet, but I think by the weekend it's going to be fine, and they can start getting ready. Their schedule opener course coming up on the 25th of April, possibly.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been pretty dry for the most part this winter. So I mean, we could use the moisture, but I don't know if we needed 15 inches of snow worth.
Yeah, and it was a wet, heavy snow. I tell you what, it was the old heart attack special out there, Mason. You didn't want to be shoveling that stuff. It was tough on everything. I had my Ranger, and I just drove up as close to the house as I could with my blade and pushed it out of here. And I thought that's as far as it's going to go. But we got through it, and then of course, you're so ready because everything was dry. It looked like we could have raced here a week ago Friday. All of a sudden, that storm come through, and they weren't kidding. They said we're going to get 6 to 10. We got it.
Oh yeah. The one time the weatherman's been pretty accurate on their predictions, and so we definitely got the moisture. Although it's all gone pretty much here, besides the shaded areas. So I think we're all in the clear for the next several days at least.
You bet. Well, knowing you, hey, how many, you've probably been running a bunch of marathons anyway this spring. You're the only guy I know that can run a cotton picking marathon in the morning and then come out and interview about 40 race car drivers at night. I don't know how you do it there, buddy. You got to have some endurance in you.
Well, we gotta have something to keep us all occupied during the winter months, and so it's like the running's kind of helped to kind of push the winter along. I ran two half marathons, and now I just registered for the full in Fargo in June. So, yep, definitely keeping busy with that.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, we love what you do with the race cars. I know the racers have so much respect for you, Mason, but and it's kind of fun to get out there and see everybody towards spring. You're like me throughout the winter. We go through and we'll run into one at, maybe I might run to one at Walmart or something or one of the local watering holes and different things and get a chance to talk a little. And sometimes they're all open and want to talk. And then other times they're keeping their secrets. They don't want to let it out to us here right away, but eventually we're going to find them.
Yeah, I've been venturing out to a couple race shops over the last couple weeks, and it's interesting to see how the progress. It's all there. No one's like at the same point. It's like some like have their cars in a million pieces, and some are pretty much race ready. So it's kind of interesting to see what people have got cooked up.
Yeah, it's amazing. The cars and these race teams now. I tell you, the pit crews are amazing. They can have that car stripped down and completely rebuild it in a day. It's just the technology's out there pretty good and the skill, the people we've got. Mason, we're so lucky. I said the talent pools out there. We've always talked about the racers, the drivers, the men, the women of Wissota, and IMCA too. They're loaded with great talent. I call them ticket sellers, but there's guys behind the scenes too and gals. I watch them out there working away, and it's just amazing what they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes of getting the cars just to the track in general, and then you got to go and race them and get some stiff competition. So, kudos to you racers and crew members that put in all the work to get these cars ready for the races this summer. And so, we already got people commenting, and if you have a question for Ron or myself, feel free to list in the comments below. We got Marcus Tomlinson out of Western North Dakota checking in, and Jeremy Bloom all the way from Wisconsin checking in as well. See, we got Marcus has a question. What will be my first race of the year, and what will Ron's be first first race of the year. You go ahead first, Ron. What's your schedule looking like to start the
Well,
year off?
my schedule right now will be I-94 at on April 25th. That would be the season opener there. Weather, of course, dictating that. And then the second one for me, of course, would be KRA on about the 15th of May. That's when that starts. So right now, kind of a little bit of an easy start. I didn't get to Arizona this winter and do anything. I did 7 snowmobile races, and that's crazy. A lot of fun to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, like I said, and then I imagine knowing you, you're probably off and flying anytime now.
Yeah, I have other stuff going on this weekend. Otherwise, I'd probably up at I believe it's Devil's Lake. Devil's Lake and Cedar Lake are opening this Saturday. I won't be able to get to either, so I'm hopefully going to try to hit Devil's Lake next Saturday if the weather's good. And like I said, I won't get to another racetrack until the first weekend of May, so I'll be out in Western North Dakota that weekend. So yeah, unfortunately, I'll be out of state the last weekend of February. You guys open up at 994.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you there, partner. You do such a great job. But every time we get you over there, we try calling you into coming out and being part of the show. And like I said, you're spoiling them people over there now. They keep asking for you every time I get out there. They say, "Get a hold of Mason, get a hold of Mason." But you got a lot of great places to go. And you got so many great tracks. Like I said, the Red River Valley up at Fargo is great. That Devil's Lake track is just a super track to run out there. And of course, you go to Mandan. That place is just a ball out there too. It's just crazy some of the racing we've got out here, and our fans are pretty spoiled, I think, aren't they?
They sure are. And you kind of mentioned the two tracks that you announced at KRA and I-94. And I believe when I first came down to Fargo during college, I believe you were announcing at 4 tracks on a weekly basis. Is that correct?
Yeah. For a while, I did for about 20 years. I did, I did Buffalo River for several years, and before that, I did Madison, Minnesota. Did Red River Valley Speedway for a few years, but then they went to Saturdays, and I'd been at Alec a long time, and I didn't have the heart to pull out on Alec at that time, so I had to step aside there. But like I said, but no, it used to be Thursday nights Wilmer, Friday nights Fergus, Saturday nights Alexandria, Sunday nights Buffalo River. One year I did 5. Fargo we ran on Wednesday nights, so I did 5 tracks, and whew, I was glad I was a little bit younger back then. About now, it'd probably kill me.
Yeah, so you were putting in just as much travel and time as a lot of these racers that are putting in 3 or 4 nights a week, and not just the night of racing where you're on a mic for the entire night, because being kind of putting a magnifying glass on like what you do during the race night. When I've been up in the booth, you have a lot of notes that you compile during the week, so you must do a lot of prep work during the week leading up to those races.
Yeah, I spend a lot of hours in this office here. Usually Mondays are 2 to 3 hours in there, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then Thursday I race usually at Wilmer. So, but yeah, it does take a little bit of work. You want to try to get as much. The fun thing about it, Mason, every one of these racers has got a story behind them, and some of them are really good, and some are fantastic. So I mean, it's just fun to see, and their families, their crew members. So you try to do the best you can with some of that, and there's some real characters out there. They're the stars, and boy, I tell you what, they do a great job for us.
Yeah, that's the fun. That's what makes announcing fun. I've announced a handful of times, and when you kind of get to know the drivers and kind of get to know their story a little bit, maybe how they got in the car they have or their number, you can kind of paint a better picture while they're out there racing on the track itself.
Yeah, that's for sure. No, it's just great to be out there and be around them, and like you said, the driving, of course, you do so much yourself. The worst, Wilmer's 110 miles, so that's a little over a 2 hour drive, but usually they're done by 10:30, so I'm home by 12:30, and then I do my story for all the dirt, and about 2 o'clock I stumble into bed, but then I can sleep in a little bit Friday, and same thing with Fergus on Fridays, right at home, of course. That program with 6 classes gets to be a little longer some nights, and of course I do all the dirt story there too. But after that, now I'm free on Saturdays and Sundays, and before I used to do biking, and they had a curfew, it was kind of bad for the racers, but it was kind of good, I suppose, on my end because I knew I was going to be done at 10:30. Otherwise, they were going to kick us out the back door. And Buffalo River was such a good little track. I mean, Buffalo River, they were efficient there on Sundays. You get there at 6 and you're probably gone home by 9. So it was good. And the tracks, and you're going to have one of them nights too. Mason, you've been to a few of them where 1 o'clock in the morning and we're still trying to get this done here. And guys, I tell you what, if there's a number on it, we're going to hit it.
Yeah, there's definitely been a fair share of those nights that kind of get a little longer than we'd like to admit. But hey, any day's a good day to be at the racetrack, and I have to remind myself of that when I get frustrated with how some of the races are taking. It's like, we're at a racetrack. All is good in life.
Well, that's for sure. And I can tell when you come walking in the door, you always got that big smile on your face. So I think you kind of enjoy it. And I'm the same way. Like I said, this will be my 40th year of doing this, which, oh my God, it's kind of a long time, a little bit. But and people keep asking you, well, when are you going to quit? Well, I said, really, right now, I'm still feeling good. I love the racing as much as ever. And truthfully, I'm only one heart attack or a stroke away from going on vacation too. So you got to be careful that way. But I'm feeling good and really enjoy it. And it keeps you young being around the race teams. And there's such hardworking people that it's just it's a labor of love.
Absolutely. We got a couple questions and comments coming in. Jeremy Bloom's asking, well, since you're on the mic a lot, so you probably don't get much downtime, but do you have a favorite track food that you like to eat?
Oh boy, any track that's got those little chicken drummies, I love those things no matter where. Of course, Bemidji, for one time, used to have a big roasted chicken back there. And I'll tell you, that gal out there, she'd cook that stuff up, and I would drive to Bemidji for the chicken. And I tell you what, well, that was really good there. But stuff like that is a little bit of one of the favorites. But my problem is, you look at my belly, you can tell I don't miss much of it because I love the brats, I love the burgers, I love the fries. I love the onion rings and Racers tacos, and of course, like you said, about anything else. And unfortunately, I can't go to the beer garden much because if we're working, we got to kind of keep ourselves straight.
Understandable too, and I can kind of relate to you when you talk about Bemidji Speedway. So we had a rain out last year. I was supposed to go to Watertown. I was just so frustrated with the rain that weekend, and I'm like, well, I could still make it to Bemidji, but I'm going to be late. I'm like, well, they do have that really good chicken, so that was kind of a deciding factor to push me to go to the track.
Isn't that true? Now they got what they call the Chicken Shack Nationals up there, so that's pretty great. The cook in the Chicken Shack has made them famous too, and they're a great bunch of people up there.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple of drivers tuning in, including Justin the Wolverine Vogel checking in, saying, "Ron, you're the best."
Oh, he's a character, boy. What a ticket seller, and he does so much. He's got like a crazy driving style. When I first watched him, and here he is, he's driving with his left hand, and his right hand was always off to the side. And I kept watching him, and Justin and I walked down to him one day, not many, many years ago. He's just a kid, he was in high school. I think he was taking a girl to prom, and she brought her to the racetrack too. But anyway, I says, how do you do that? Well, he says, I got it. He says, Ron, because if I use both hands, I'll oversteer. And one of the best drivers you'll ever see out there, and then he's doing it with one hand, left-handed. And I tell the fans, I got to get him to wear a white glove. He wears his black glove, so sometimes it's hard to see. But the other day, I think one of you guys put a camera in on him one time, and I think that might have been at the Little Dream. And it showed that hand up there the whole time. And I thought, by golly, you know what? Thank you guys with the camera stuff here, because at least I'm not a liar anymore. But that was pretty cool. And he's he's like any others. I know you're with that street stock tour, Mason. You know what you got there? A great bunch of guys that have a lot of fun, and there's a lot of color there, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Justin's always been a fun guy to be around. And yeah, when I first put a camera in his car and I saw he was doing one hand driving, I'm like, wow, that's pretty skillful. I need two hands on the wheel for when I just drive my regular passenger cars. So.
Yeah, no, true. And there's a few other guys that do it, but he kind of was the one that got it started early. And I'll tell you, it's. I remember another story about Justin. I don't want to go too much and pick on him too much here, but he brought his prom date to Viking one time, and they came to the races. He raced and he had his prom suit on, and boy, she was dressed up beautiful out there with her prom dress. And he raced. I think his car got on fire that night, so he got out of there okay. He didn't get burned or anything. And of course, once they got done, he brought her out, and they went back for the Grand March or whatever they called it at the prom there. And I thought, now that one there, I don't know who she was. And at one time we were giving him a hard time. He probably should have married her. But anyway, she probably took off and went driving a race car herself. So anyway, that was a long time ago. They were just high school kids there. I think he was probably a senior in high school.
That's a funny story. And knowing Justin, it fits him, fits the bill.
Yeah, if you're going to be around Justin, you better get ready to go to a race.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have Lindsey Hansen tuning in. Lindsey being behind the wheel with Soda Late Model the last couple of years. He says, Ron always makes me sound like I was Soda champion anytime I pull out on the track. He's the best announcer in history. Keep it up.
Well, to Lindsay, he does that himself. He does a great job. It's amazing, I think a lot of people when he first jumped in late thought, "Boy, Lindsay, you're making a big hop there." But he's so smooth out there. He gets out in that thing, and it's amazing. You watch guys like him, that you think, "Man, alive!" I tell you what, I don't. I know I couldn't do it, but they just get out there, and he just cool and calm. And of course, he's a big hit at the tracks too. He's so good in the pits with everybody too. That's one thing about Lindsay also.
Yeah, Lindsay's been one of my good friends over the last several years. We were actually lived pretty dang close to each other for a little bit of time, so got to get to know him quite a bit too. And yeah, when he was making that transition to late model, I'm like, ooh, that's a big jump, but seemed to catch on pretty dang quick and looked pretty good last year, especially.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We don't know. We got a few new faces coming in there, and some people, not everybody can make that jump. And Mason, you've seen it too at that tracks. You'll see guys that try to make the move up. They might move up from a Midwest mod to a modified, or from a super stock or a IMCA stock car to a late model, and it don't always work. I mean, and it. It's just these guys are a different breed of cat. There's no doubt about that. We got a bunch of them, and you just shake your head. You watch them. They drop that green flag. They go into turn one, 24 cars. They're 3 and 4 wide at 100 miles an hour. No brake lights, no tail lights, and hang on. Katie bar the door, and down the back straightaway we go, and they just blast off, and the crowd goes nuts, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Oh man, yeah, you kind of have to have like an unhook the brain type of thinking when you're a race car driver. So I can understand that too.
Yeah, isn't that true? Yeah, these are very perfectly normal, very intelligent people when you talk to them. Because they put that helmet on, they get to be some wild men sometimes, but they do a great job. And I guess that's the reason they're doing it, and that's the reason we enjoy watching them.
Ryan Flotton also checking in. Ryan behind Wasota Modified, and I believe he's also got a Midwest Modified in the works for this year. He says, see you in a couple weeks, Ron.
Yeah, boy, he's another one of those young guys that's come along, jumped into that super stock for a while, and really did a heck of a job there. But what really impressed me is when he got in the modified, and I know you've seen him a few times there too. Boy, I'll tell you what, he's really competitive, and just seems so cool and calm. Same thing there. But his dad, Jeff was just a great racer, and he's still out there a little bit doing it, and it looks like Ryan's just going to continue on the family name.
Yeah, and I feel like it's cooled off the last couple of years, but I always get a kick out of Ryan and his weather updates from Madison because I think he lives super close, like within a block or two. So it was always fun to kind of get that part of racing season to all the inside jokes from the summer.
Yeah, is that true? I mean, there's so many stories you could tell, different things at these racetracks and the people you meet, and some of the people that work at them, some of the characters that we get to meet. I mean, just fantastic people. And then you used to stop and think it used to be they used to think we were a bunch of mechanics and rednecks out there, and boy, now you've got very successful businessmen, lawyers, doctors. God, Mason, you could fly to the moon and back, Cotton Picker. If I suppose, and like I said, I luckily got through 12th grade, but it's a lot of fun to see. But we're very blessed.
We have such great racers and great fans and people that work on the race cars and make the racetracks run, and so it all comes together to kind of get the race night all put together. And so I suppose as the race season's kind of approaching within a couple of weeks, I suppose you're maybe kind of perusing like Facebook and everything, seeing what people are up to. Do you get to have like any other conversations outside like Facebook on what drivers are kind of getting up to so you have an idea of what's going to happen the first night out?
Yeah, truthfully, I follow, I got a lot of just about any racer that's out there. I usually try to grab them as a friend on Facebook if I can. And there's so much information, and they're really good. And the guys are really good about it. I mean, and it's really fun about it is you learn more about their families. Some of these guys, their kids are amazing athletes in high school and different sports and different things. And they do a lot of stuff. And like I said, it's just the nice thing is, you gather up a lot of info on the race teams and their families off Facebook, and it's really a nice tool to have. I'm not very tech savvy, but I got to be honest with you, I'm on there, and a lot of my notes that I put in, there, of course, and of course, it's like anything else. When you get to the racetrack, it's walk the pits, but sometimes you don't have the time before a race, Mason, to get in there, and then they're busy, and I don't like to. If I see somebody that's really thrashing on a car, I kind of have a tendency to step back and let them be. I know I raced myself for 9 years, and I remember that was quite an operation sometimes. There, if you didn't get your work done during the week, you were working at the racetrack to get it done. But that means a lot right there, and like I said, and I try to get to as many shops as if I see to come through a town. If I see there's somebody by a race shop, uh, here I come, boys. And the only thing they gotta do then, they usually lock up the beer coolers. And there we go. So, but it's fun to stop and see the guys too.
Yeah, and that's the kind of something that I've been trying to do a little bit more, especially like these last couple weeks. I'm like, man, these like you actually see a lot more like working in the shop, and you kind of find out a little more details. Obviously, people want to keep stuff secret, but it's kind of interesting to see like all of the work that goes into the race car, and kind of like the backstory, like where the car came from, and kind of like what got them to switch classes or something. And so yeah, you find out a lot of stuff when you kind of get more in like the personal side of racing.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you find out, like I said, it's surprising sometimes how much the wives and girlfriends do on these cars. Man, I tell you what, and some of the stuff they work on. A couple of years ago, I can't remember, was it Angles out of South Dakota's got two young daughters. I think one was like 14, the other's 15. Remember, the one's racing, I think, right now on a late model. And I'm
Yep.
walking through the pits there, and all of a sudden, here's this young girl, and there's a rim laying there and a tire, and she's mounting this tire on the rim. She's not just blowing it up and putting it on the car. She mounted the tire on the rim, blew it up, threw it on the back of his late model. There was a couple of young guys there, about 17 years old, and they're looking at each other like, "Holy cow, how'd she do that?" And this little gal, I mean, just amazing how what they can, the stories and stuff you do. I've told the story many times about Corey Poyer and his wife Liza at the time was 7 months pregnant, racing at Buffalo River, and he's racing, I think, like a Hornet or a short tracker. He gets a flat tire, so he rolls down off of turn one back there, and you can see there's a little wall where they have tire change area. And of course, Corey's an out of towner, so not many people know him. They're not probably going to jump in. But here goes Liza. And all of a sudden, I see this little blonde head behind that wall drop down, and she jacks that car up and takes that impact wrench, rolls that thing off. And apparently, pretty soon the car goes back down. I had my stopwatch on her. I thought, this is going to take some time. 1 minute, right at about 1 minute almost exactly, and she had that tire change in that car. Now, granted, she did work as a mechanic for Quality Toyota in Fergus, so she wasn't new to it. But here's this gal 7 months pregnant, changing a tire, and he's right back out on the racetrack, didn't miss a beat, and stayed on the lead lap. And I thought,
And
wow.
I'm sure she said too, it's got to get done. Got to get back out on the track.
Yeah. And she's just a tough little gal. She ain't a very big gal either. I mean, she's still, she's got a couple sons that race at Fergus and Buffalo River right now again. So she still goes there. I drove out by the racetrack one day last summer, and I was driving to the pits. It was raining like crazy, and here was Liza laying underneath Chase's short tracker, changing the oil on it in a rainstorm. And I thought, wow, that's racing people for you.
Man, that's awesome. And yeah, it takes all people, every part of the family to make everything go together. It's awesome to see. Which, speaking of racing families, I know you are good friends with the Fromke family. Julianne Fromke checking in. And Jeremy Fell, I believe, is with that crew as well. And unfortunately, I think he's at a meeting tonight, so he'll probably check this out a little bit later. But he's saying the NASCAR Wizard, as he's called, is a huge fan of yours.
Oh, he's a great guy. I went down and had lunch with those guys here, and Jake, of course, we call him Catfish out there, and of course the NASCAR Wizard, and I'm the Frog, So we sat down and had a good meal with him here about a year ago. It was really fun to see him, and I tell you, and they are so right about that. You ask him one thing about anything NASCAR, and boom, he's got it. He's just like an encyclopedia, just and stuff, and just such a fun person to be around. And like I said, I wish we still had Jake racing in the area, running around Fargo and stuff. I think it's his cousin, is it? That's racing, or it could be a brother. But anyway, it's just fun to see those guys and pretty impressive. And Jake, what the deal was, Jeremy kind of got to be friends with him, and Jake would take about an hour a night, once a week, and call Jeremy, and they would just talk racing. And Jake Fromke did that for a long time, and no, not I don't think a lot of people knew about it, but he did that, and Jeremy, just they got to be very very good friends over that. Mason, isn't that cool though to have something like that where a racer that takes time, and there's so many of them that do it. I mean, we've got they, hundreds of them stories like that I could tell because that's the kind of people we deal with.
Yeah, and I think it's important to do that too, especially as a racer. I mean, obviously, I'm not a racer, but it helps to create those lifelong race fans that just want to be involved in the sport in any way they can. And so it's awesome that they have like those conversations, even like during the summer or just outside of the summer when we're all busy doing other stuff.
Yeah, that certainly is the case there. But yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, as you sit down and visit and you think about some of these things here, and like I said, someday I thought it'd be fun. A guy should sit down, and you should do the same thing. We should sit down and write a book.
Oh,
And I'm sure you've got. I can about imagine some of the stories you can tell about some of your interviews. That some of them characters come up with some crazy things on it sometimes. But overall, they do a fantastic, very good. I mean, it's not very often that they get too bad with the language. Once in a while, we'll slip one here a little bit, but it's so emotional. They get out there and. But like I said, we'll better just we'll leave it at that anyway. But someday, I guess we should sit down and write a book. You know what? Maybe that'd be the thing to do, Mason.
we could write a whole series. Let's be real. We could write a whole series of books.
Yeah, yes, you are so right. We sure could. And like I said, and we could do that through the month of May, the first month of the season. It'll be interesting. But the thing I noticed too about talking about coming up with the season opening up now, I think the thing that impresses me over the days when I raced, when we came out early in the spring, we were a bunch of hacks. I mean, we run into each other, and Christ, we'd run each other in hot laps, and now you watch these race teams, they come out, they hit the track, and they're in mid-season form. Man, they're just blasting around that thing. Usually the first group comes out of them cotton picking with soda streets, and they'll pair up side by side, and away they go. And you know how they are. They're not happy unless they're three wide, and sometimes four. And but they come back into the pits afterwards. You'd think they'd be fuming at each other, and next thing you know, after the race, they're sitting there having a beer. That's
Yep.
that's great.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like beginning of the season, everyone's car looks nice and like don't want to tear it up on the first night too. So it's probably even though they like probably drive a little conservative, but then like some of the races, it's like nope, they're going to go three wide right away. All right, let's see how this works.
Yeah, you could almost just well start them three wide because they're going to get there anyway. But oh well. And like I said, and the big thing, it's more things about it. We've got a lot of younger people that are very talented because of the go-kart racing. The ladies in racing, there is a ton of them out there right now. I mean, you look at Maria Brokesick down there, or Brokesick down there from South Dakota is as good a street racer as there is. I know you had Ashley Wampler with you guys on your tour up there. When we first came out, Ashley Boyum, remember, I was actually Merriworth at that time, and she kind of led the way for a lot of them, being back there. And of course, Haley Lee is dynamite now on a Midwest mod, and of course, then we got the Dynamite girls up there, Layla and Amelia, and the Leibals, Eisenstein girls, Donnie's nieces, or excuse me, yeah, nieces, and they are something else. And I look back on Morgan Ward, and gosh, it's just so many. Kennedy Swan, she's as good in a modified as you can find. So it's changing. I mean, it's a little bit, but it's all for the good.
I agree. It's great to see all the female racers winning races and being very successful. We have a couple of questions that have been rolling in. Kevin Usatis checking in, wondering what is Ron's favorite track.
Well, God, everybody's asked me that a lot. It depends on what night it is. If you want to know the honest truth, you know, I've got, for many years, I always had a ball at Buffalo River. Madison Maynard Meyer and I worked down there, and oh my God, we had fun. Back then we could sip on a beer, and I'll never forget one time we're sitting in, and we're at the grandstand, and Maynard's the local DJ there. And I called a lot of the races, but Maynard was the entertainment on the side. And a lady from his church walked up behind him, and Maynard was sitting there sipping on a beer with his feet up on top of the table. And she looked at him and she said, Maynard Meyer, what are you doing drinking while you're working? And Maynard looked at her and he says, you call this work? So she just turned around and stormed away. That was the end of that. But no, I guess as far as a favorite track, I really don't have anyone that really, they've all got so many things about them that are so good. I know racers, you'll have one that really works good with your car. And when I raced, I had like a track that you'd always liked. Viking was go. I always liked that racetrack down there. And, that when I was racing, and my dad built a track at Fergus, which I raced on, which wasn't my favorite track, so, but, isn't that crazy how that goes?
Yeah.
So, but I think, like I said, for my end of the job, every night, they all give you back so much. There's so many crazy things that happen, and like I said, I suppose by the time I'm all done, something will figure out. But right now, I love them all.
That's kind of, the more I travel to tracks, I kind of have that same philosophy as well. And like, even like with racers itself, I always get asked like, who's your favorite racer? That question actually rolled in, and I'm like, I can't pick a favorite racer just because of what I do for the most part. And I'm sure it's kind of the same for you, especially as you get to know so many different drivers.
Yeah, that's for sure. You love them all. Like I said, there's nights that you just say, "Oh God, I wish you wouldn't have done that." But like I said, you get out to a point where when you walk in that gate, you got to be partial and take care of them all because they got fans out there and Grandpa and Grandma are up in the stands, and I'm surely not going to beat them up too much. They know if I'm not happy with them, I probably don't talk about them a lot. So, that's probably the one thing, and that usually only lasts for about a half an evening, and then I fall in love with them again and say, hey, hi, God dang, you're still my favorite guys down there. So, or gals.
Makes sense. Now we got Ryan Michelson checking in, and I love this question. This is a great question. He's asking, what's the age cutoff from being the young gunner to the wily old veteran?
Oh, Ryan, you got to hit me with one like that there. Well, let's put it this way. You're no longer a young gunner, Michelson. You're getting to be a wily old veteran now, but I don't know. Isn't it funny how that goes? You watch it. I always think, the teenagers, once they get past that 19 into that 20 range, by that time, let's face it, in our sport, Mason, you know as well as I do, they probably got 6-7 years experience. They're starting when they're 12 and 13.
Yep.
Now, so, by that time, they're no longer a young gun. And I will stretch it a few times there, and once in a while, I'll even hit one of the old boys there. I might be in his 40s and 50s and call him a young gun for the heck of it, or because my mind went off on a ton someplace that I didn't know where it went. But like I said, overall, like I said, it's that's probably my cutoff there. Probably out of the teenage years, 16, 17. After that, they've been doing it well. You're gonna have to make them. They're gonna have to become an old veteran then, a wily old veteran, we'll call them, right?
Well, and just for example, because a lot of my friends have been tuning into this, like including like Kyle Dykoff, for example. I think Kyle's younger than me, but he's a veteran at this point.
Yeah, he's a national champion. Them Dykoff boys have been. Remember when they came out to Buffalo River? I think in the pure stocks way back, and they are young guys yet, but they started so dang young. And Corey's still going strong. Kyle, boy, he won another national championship here again, and he just he's married now. He and Haley got a little baby, and things are he's gonna have to be a wily old veteran now.
Yeah, and it probably makes some of the drivers feel a little older, but you just know when you hear their name on the track, it's like you better expect that they're probably going to be at the front of the field and competing for wins.
Well, that's for sure, and And like I said, with that bunch, you talking a little bit. I was just, thinking about your street stock tour. We don't know what's coming back this year, but I think the thing will be bigger and better than ever. And now you got, like I said, I don't know what the Brower boys are doing. I'm pretty sure they're going to be in streeters again. Kyle Anderson, the veteran from Jamestown, out there again. Now Chris Riley's really picked it up. He won the title at Fergus last year. I don't know what he's going to do this year again. And of course, then you got young guys like Levi Rant, who's what, 13 or 14 now. Cole Crescent, he's an old timer. He's about 17 now. I mean, get guys like him, and then of course you got the veterans like Casey Usadas and guys coming up through the ranks right now, like Nick Shemansky and some of these guys that we don't see. I tell you what, Mason, we got some guys coming behind the scene. Tommy Pagonis, a young guy from down there, and some of these others here too. Zach Flickinger down at Wilmer. I have him. He is really coming on. So your street stock tour this year is going to be interesting to see. It's about a toss up. But of course, then you got the Wolverines sitting out there lurking. I've been wanting to get Ryan Satter back in the streeter again. I really miss him in that street class because he had some great battles with them guys too. And of course, we don't know what Kyle Dykoff's going to do here, this year again. So. And then, of course, you get out in Dakota country, them Jamestown boys are tougher than nails out there.
Yes, they are.
There's so many of them guys out there that So it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be fun to watch, and like the other divisions, there's a few guys moving up. Last year I think if you don't mind me talking a little bit about jet racing in general, I see the Midwest mod counts have been good. I mean they're holding up steady. The mod fields kind of went down a little bit, and late model racing is bigger and better than ever right now.
Yes.
And there's guys jumping into it and gals. I mean, it's a great field. Them lates are doing good, but look out because there's a pile of these young guys that come out of this Midwest mods, and when they hit the track, some of them are going to go into that mod field, and I've seen that with Justin Fremming last year. We talked about Kennedy Swan. What she did. I think remembering that wasn't that $100,000 race. She was the only Wissota racer in the final field that day, and here she is, a 16-year-old girl. I mean, that's really, really good.
Yeah, there's so much good talent in all the classes. I think that was actually a question earlier. Is there a specific race class that you enjoy watching more than others, or are you kind of similar to drivers and tracks? You kind of got a whole sort of favorites.
To announce, sometimes the old pure stocks are a lot of fun because you never know what them characters are going to do. Same thing with the Hornets and short trackers. Mm-hmm. You can have total the inmates take over the asylum about half the time on them races. You know how that goes. They just all of a sudden there are people all over the place, and and they might spin up, but they'll get going again. They're fun, and of course the streets bring to me. The streets are so much fun because of the competitiveness. Their features are a ball. I like them. One of the exciting hard charging classes, though, are the Midwest Modifieds. I tell you what, that is boy. If you get in a bad heat there, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And then of course, whether it's an IMCA or a Wissota mod, boy, them guys are. Oh, they're crazier than all get out. My God, I tell you, the talent that we got in there to watch them guys go. The sliders they throw at each other are just nuts. And the same thing with the lates. I mean, the lates out there right now, like I said, you got a bunch of new guys that are starting to sneak up in there. And then, of course, you still got them old timers that don't want to let them get in here yet. Mitch Johnson came back, is looking really good. Donnie Shaw can still win a race anytime he wants. And you get up there with Brad Singh and them guys out of Grand Forks. And then, of course, Dustin Strand is good in a late or a mod. I mean, you name it. So there's a ton of them. And then, of course, all the young kids that are coming up through the ranks are going to be in them. We're going to have another batch hit again this year. And by next fall, me and you will be sitting here having a little bull session and saying, boy, how about that kid? Where'd he come from? Or her.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about the season, especially now, like this time of year, April, May, because people like to keep things under wraps until they show up to the track and it's like, oh, who's that car that just rolled through the gate? Or if they're in a completely different class, it's just like, oh, this is an interesting curveball. So it's kind of fun. This time of year is probably the most fun and mystery that we have throughout the entire year.
Yeah, and then look at Tyler Peterson. Came out of the blue, and I tell you what, he went right to the top. He didn't screw around. Talk about a national champion maker. Peterson's as good as there is anywhere. And a lot of these guys, I think you could put them on a national stage, and I think they do quite well. we talked about the twins there, Layla and Amelia, for the young girls out there that are joining in that late model class too. But oh, there's a bunch of others too coming, and I think you're going to see a few more talking about a few of them jumping up this year. It'll be interesting to see how some of them fit in. I haven't been doing dropping too many names yet because I want to make sure that it's a done deal. The rumors are out there. I mean, oh God, if you go into a bar about 9 o'clock at night after the boys have had 5 beers, man, all of a sudden I tell you what, you could be like an FBI agent. You can get more information you need to know.
That is so true. I always think of like it was the national banquet and some of the rumors
Yeah.
that fly around after people get a few
Oh man,
cocktails
isn't
in
that
them.
crazy? Yeah.
Yeah. There's some interesting stories that some that result in like true things happening and others that are kind of just fantasy ideas and it's like, yeah, that didn't get off the ground at all. Wanted to give a shout
Yeah.
out to Travis Ulmer checking in. I believe you've seen Travis Ulmer race. He's saying
Oh,
Ron's best
yeah,
voice on
yeah,
the mic
well,
and knows and studies his racing.
yep, that 3 car. I'll tell you what, he's solid too. He's been good for a long time. I think the guys out in Western North Dakota would like to run him out of there and move him back over here with us here. But the guys here ain't too in a big hurry to get him here either because he's awfully good. And Travis can come out there and just win races, but he does a good job too. Travis, he does a good job of promoting the sport. You notice he does a lot of I think, real nice Facebook pages. The quality doesn't rip a lot of stuff down, and that means a lot too. I mean, guys like that are so good for everything, and they got a tough bunch out there, boy. That you get out in that country, you better be ready to rock and roll because they're going to spank you and send you back home.
Yeah, it's like I love like traveling both sides of the state of North Dakota, going all the way out to Wisconsin, because you just get to see so many different groups and communities of people, and it's like you hear one group saying like, "Oh yeah, we're the fastest." It's like, "Oh no, I don't know about this group," and so it's like it's fun to see when you hear that banter, and then when people actually come together, how they actually stack up. That's really fun for me.
Yeah, and you notice when you go to an area, there are certain guys that are going to protect that home turf. You get to South Dakota down there, Chad Becker and them guys, and Ward and them guys are all waiting for you, and Morgan Ward Gross and Lee and all them. And then you get to Wisconsin, you got that whole crew waiting over there. The Brower boys in the streets are waiting over there, and of course Buzzy Adams and company are waiting on that side. And then you come up to up into northern North Dakota up there, and then of course you got just the guys over on this side of the state out there. You think Nate Rinke and the Nightmare Rodine and that bunch, you go in their neck of the woods, they're going to beat you up down there. Then you go up on the Iron Range and Provenzino and them guys are waiting for you. So there's no easy tickets out there. You better pack your lunch if you're going to run to these places, and because they're not going to cut you any slack.
No, they sure aren't. And I'm curious because we had one more question roll in. Since you have two tracks Thursdays and Fridays, I'm curious, what do you do on your off time on the weekend? Do you kind of just relax at your house or go to a lake or something? What do you do to kind of pass the time?
Actually, I spend most of it probably watching videos on Dirt Race Central, a lot of it in the evenings, so I can watch 3, 4 tracks at a time. But yeah, no, I do take a little time away. Me and my son and the grandkids come around once in a while, so I get a chance to do a little fishing and read a night and kind of kick back for a day or so. But by Sunday nights, I'm watching Casino and Bemidji and Buffalo River and them tracks. And on Saturdays, of course, I'll try catch maybe Jamestown's got something going, or if Devil's Lake is on film there, or go down to you got Princeton and North Central and different kinds of races. So it's kind of fun to see all that. But yeah, it's kind of just a day of rest, a little bit Saturday and putz around a little bit, do a little fishing, and then of course Monday, usually Sunday night and Monday night, I got to get back on my notes and get going again because I do track all. Like since I work with the Wissota 100 quite a bit, I do track all Wissota tracks, so I track every winner at every Wissota track all season long, and it's a little bit of work, but I got a spreadsheet here. I kind of write their names and numbers in there and chase them down. As long as I don't get too far behind, if I stay on, within a night or two, then it's okay. Because and the rain out weekends really help because then you got nothing. But boy, when they're all racing, it's busier than how it is, Mason. You're out there, you're hitting a lot of me. I know I see you a lot of them on TV.
Yeah, and I try to do like all the fantasy points at all the Wissota tracks, and believe me, Fridays and Saturdays are a nightmare.
Oh boy, yeah, isn't it crazy? Because that's when everybody's racing. It's just bonsai out there. It's crazy, but that's part of racing. We're lucky, we talk about. I've got 5 tracks within 50 miles of me here, But on my Fergus, with like Norman County, Red River Valley, Buffalo River, Cheyenne, Viking. I mean, they're all right here, and plus the Fergus track here, and then within 100 miles, I probably got 15.
Yeah.
So we're blessed. We got some people say we probably got too many, and they might be right. It's stretched thin in some of the tracks, and but the promoters just do a great job. I got to give them credit. They all seem to make things work, and the racers are pretty good too. And you stop and think about the racers. They probably wouldn't have to go to these tracks and stuff, but they're going there and maybe not making quite the money they should. But you know what? They're supporting them, and like I said, and it seems like racing's thriving very well.
I'd agree. I think racing's in a good spot right now, and there's this time of year, of course, energy and excitement is as high as it'll be throughout the year, and so I think we're in a great spot, and I think people are seeing like a lot more of the work that kind of goes into like everything, like promoting wise and having a racetrack run and keeping it open. So I think people are starting to understand that a little more than they probably did 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah, and you stop and think. I know Kiana's been busy at Fergus here, trying to hire people. She's got. I know. Sue is going to take a break. She's a nurse up there that ran our concessions. She did an amazing job up there. She's going to kind of back down a little bit, boy, and you got to replace a person like that. Plus, I know Scott needs a couple more record drivers. They're trying to hire people. And then, of course, they got to get everything fired up. And today he was out there, I think, changing oil and getting some of the equipment started. And then, of course, it was kind of wet, so he couldn't do anything on the track. But and they got to fire up. The water's all shut off. So you got to get all that stuff working. I hope it ain't water pipes, but. And then Don and Kiana are busy talking to people and the sponsors and all that, and it's just crazy. Every other track's doing the same thing.
Yep. Yep, everyone's got the same sort of issues and same kind of hurdles and challenges to get their season started, and hopefully the two tracks this weekend, Cedar Lake and Devil's Lake, will be able to kick it off because I'm sure they'll have a good amount of cars showing up to try to get some seat time early in the year.
Well, they'll be crazy. There'll probably be 300 cars at Cedar Lake, and I tell you, I hope Devil's Lake packs that place in there too. That'll be fun for them up there. And it sounds like the weather on Saturday, they're talking mid to upper 60s now. It sounds like it's really going to be a beautiful day, and that would be really nice for them guys. So I would tell everybody up in the north end of the valley up here, jump in your car, head up to Devil's Lake, and take in some great racing. You're going to see. I think the late models are up there too with them, and boy, they're going to have a heck of a show up there.
Yeah, I mean you won't have better weather in April than that. And racers, even if your car's like halfway done and not fully wrapped, just go out there, go out and get some
Yep.
seat time.
You bet. Get up there and have a little fun out there, and you're all in the same boat, right?
Yeah,
We're all in the same
exactly.
boat. Everybody.
Well, got one last question, and then we'll let you go here from Jeremy out in Wisconsin again, and kind of tie it into any other racing travel that you do. He's asking if you've ever been to the Gateway Nationals yet.
That's one race I haven't gotten to. I've been to Volusia, I've been out in Arizona and all them tracks out there. I've been down to some of I think, a King of America on some of them, and boy, it's been a long time since I've been out there at some of these others. But no, I've never been there, and I've heard that's just a dynamite race.
Same, and I haven't been there yet either. Usually by by the end of October, I'm kind of burnt out, and so I kind of focus on other things. And so when people are like, "Yeah, you should go down in the middle of December," and I usually go out to California, and I'm like, "Well, California sounds really nice right now too." So
You bet that icebreaker. And yeah, same thing here. I usually do a couple late fall specials. Now we got one at Fergus I've been doing here, and for a lot of years at Alec we did that fall classic. But so you kind of get caught almost into the middle of October, and by that time you're kind of I gotta get ready to do a little deer hunting stuff too. So things like that. But yeah, no, overall, like I said, it sure be fun to get there, and I wish, like I said, as I get maybe one of these days, if I do quit totally doing this here end of it, I'll be able to go there. But I have a feeling when that time comes along, I'll be lucky if I can get up and get out of my chair. So I think we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay.
well, I think you'll have a good group of people that'll be willing to carry you up to that announcer's booth to hear you call a race. So I don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah, well, boy, yeah, I tell you what, yeah, I ain't gonna turn them down. So, but Mason, like I said, I sure enjoyed sitting here talking with you here tonight. Boy, it's been a fun time, and I think us two could sit here and go for 3 hours on racing. But I know you got to get your stuff started, and I'll be keeping an eye out for you. And then here we go again for another round, right?
Yep, you got it. I'm looking forward to seeing you, hanging out with you in the announcer's tower from time to time. And thank you, everyone that tuned in and commented and said hi. I appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing all of you at the racetrack in the next couple weeks. And so thank you again, Ron, for the time. And we'll see you probably within 3 to 4 weeks.
Sounds good, buddy. You take care. Be safe.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.